We start with the opening talk that outlines the policy context where the Digicom 2.2 update takes place. For that, I would like to turn to Chiara Riondino, who works at the European Commission's Directorate General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion. She's head of unit for vocational education and training and CEDEFOP in the Directorate B, which ensures that jobs and skills keep pace with the rapid changes in both the labor market and wider society. Her work also covers the Digicom framework. So pleased to have you here with us today, and the floor is yours, Chiara.
Thank you very much, Stefano, and thanks for inviting me to open this pre-webinar today. Well, I don't need to tell you that digital skills and jobs are more than ever, I would say, especially after the pandemic, a key priority for the EU. And you can see this through all of our policy documents, but also through the funding that is made available. So, you know, we have the European Digital Strategy, the Digital Decade and Compass, and of course, very, very importantly, the pillar of social rights and its action plan. And together with these, all the EU funding, the European Social Funds, the Recovery and Resilience Facility, and everything that we are doing now very much is geared towards helping people develop digital skills and, of course, green skills. And there is an interaction between the two. And hopefully this will help us and guide us through a smooth recovery. As organizations operating beyond the EU, you're also very well aware that digital upskilling is a worldwide imperative, I would say now, that goes well beyond our European borders. So we are very happy and keen to work with you on this issue. And we're very happy today to exchange this work around the digital competence framework and its current update. With the skills agenda and the digital education action plan, we set concrete measures to support the development of digital skills, including the present update of Digicomp, which is included in Action 8 of the Digital Education Action Plan and Action 6 of the skills agenda. So even if we are already aware of the rapid pace of digitalization, the pandemic has accelerated the digital transition. And in a way, we can consider this, in a way, a silver lining of this pandemic, because it has forced us to accelerate reforms and investments that were in the pipeline or in the making already for several years. We know that already before the pandemic, 90% of jobs required some level of digital skills. Now, it's not only the jobs that require digital skills, it's almost every kind of interaction that we have, even with our families or with our colleagues or with the public administration, will require some level of digital skills. And yet, according to the 2020 DESI, the Digital Economy and Society Index, only 42% of the adult population in the EU 42% of the adult population in the EU do not have sufficient basic digital skills. So it's clear that we have a huge gap that we need to fill, and we need to equip people with the skills they need to be able to take part in the transition. We need most than everything avoid a new digital divide. And now that also education and learning and training is going online, not having digital skills as much as not having access to digital infrastructure could contribute to increasing this divide. We need to be more ambitious on the digital upskilling of the whole population, because we have seen in recent years that the rate of increase of adults with at least basic digital skills has been very slow. We are witnessing around a 1% increase per year, which is not enough to reach our objectives, which are much more ambitious. And the European Pillar of Social Right Action Plan that was recently endorsed at the highest political level in the EU, building on the skills agenda, digital upskilling target and bringing it to 2030 has put 80% of adults with at least basic digital skills as our goal and objective. And the digital competence framework can really play a central role in achieving our European objectives with regards to digital upskilling of the whole population. DigiComp has provided a common understanding across the EU of what digital competencies are and provided a basis for framing digital skills policies in the member states, in the regions, and in our schools, I would have to say. And we have seen, and it's really impressive to see how many member states and regions in Europe have used DigiComp to develop their skills policy, to shape their curricula, or for assessing digital competencies, be it in an education and training sector context or in a labor market context, and also in the context of the validation of non-formal and informal learning. And we're very pleased to see also that other organizations such UNESCO are using DigiComp in countries beyond the EU. The digital competence framework for citizens should be further established as an EU-wide framework for understanding and developing digital competencies. And while we know that there is high awareness of DigiComp among experts and among a certain DigiComp community, it's clear that we can do more in promoting DigiComp in the EU and beyond. And the broad acceptance of the competence framework will be especially important for the proposed European Digital Skills Certificate, which is another of the concrete actions that we are taking forward under the Digital Education Action Plan. We have seen what DigiComp has accomplished so far, and we are very pleased that it has achieved such a solid basis and broad basis, but a lot has happened since 2016 when DigiComp was last updated. A lot has happened in terms of emerging technologies. If we look at the developments of artificial intelligence, stratification, or if we look at emerging phenomena such as misinformation and disinformation. So this is why it's important in this update to take into account the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that are needed by citizens in the face of these new challenges and of these developments. It's also good to see that the statements of knowledge, skills, and attitudes in this DigiComp update will also take account of the green transition and the sustainability aspects and how these interact with digital technologies. It's also important to mention the process that has been taken by the JRC to prepare this update. Very importantly, through consulting a very broad number of stakeholders, including through the community of practice that was set up. In addition, I would like to stress the importance of the validation process and all the associated activities, be it through the public online validation or through international interactive workshops, such as the one on the 22nd of September involving international players and organizations such as yourselves. So this is really a crucial and vital part of the process. For us, ensuring stakeholder involvement and buy-in is fundamental if we want really to achieve broad acceptance of the framework and the continued recognition and its meaningfulness. So I would like to wish you every success in this validation process and in the implementation of the DigiComp update. And I look forward to the launch of DigiComp 2.2 in February next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chiara, for setting the policy context and also for outlining the major policy initiatives that highlight the importance of digital skills in the future. it's good to know that the role that the DigiComp framework can play within it. Now, let's go ahead to learn a little bit more about the specific validation work that we're kicking off today. So let me introduce Yves Poeny and Rina Burikari from the European Commission's Joint Research Center. Thank you for being here. And now, to start, you're now starting a series of validation activities for the DigiComp update. The DigiComp 2.2 publication will be out later in February 2022. So first, Yves, you work as the deputy head of unit that produced the DigiComp framework. Could you please tell us something more about what it is?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Stefano, and also thank you, Chiara, for such a splendid introduction already. It's a real pleasure to be together with all of you. Maybe just we want to go back to the basics and say what the DigiComp framework is all about. So basically what the framework does in principle is to try to define and describe what it means to be digitally competent. And we also quite proud that in Europe we have an agreed definition of digital competence, which you can see also now on the slide. And it means that digital competence involves confident, critical, and responsible use of and engagement with the full range of digital technologies for many different purposes, for learning, at work, and for participation in society. As you can see in the definition is not a technical definition. It's not only about being able to manipulate an Excel file or send an email, but it's about much broader kind of set of competences that we all need to be able to participate in our society. And this is based on the Council recommendation on key competences for lifelong learning, which was published in 2018, which agrees on this definition. And also just to highlight that we define competences at the European level as a combination of knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And especially also that attitude part is an important part of the competence framework. As was said before, actually we started already in 2010, almost, well, 11 years ago, so we can celebrate our 11th anniversary. We started working on DigiComp in 2010. We published the first version of the DigiComp framework in 2013. We were able to make an update, DigiComp 2.0, in 2016, and another one in 2017, DigiComp 2.1, which highlights more proficiency levels and examples of use. In the meantime, also we published some guidelines and case studies on the use and uptake of the DigiComp framework. And we're now very pleased to announce that hopefully in February, the beginning of next year, we will be able to release DigiComp 2.2. To highlight that DigiComp is part of the European key competences for lifelong learning, which actually defined 8 specific key competences that everybody needs to have to be able to participate in our society. Digital competence is one of them, but actually we at the JRC, we worked also on 2 other key competences related to the key competence framework. One is the Entrecomp, the entrepreneurship, the Entrecomp competence framework, which we published in 2016. And more recently, last year, we dealt with the personal, social, and learning to learn competences in the LifeComp framework, which was published in 2020. Then in addition, also to say that the Council of Europe, so another institution within Europe, developed the common European framework of references for languages, which many people know as well, and a framework for competences for democratic culture. So you see, we have quite a full area of frameworks related to the key competences Council recommendation. But in addition, we have more frameworks. And here you can actually see the whole package of competence frameworks that we've been developing at the JRC, the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. So at the individual level, we have DigiComp. We have also DigiComp Consumer, which was published in 2016, where it was a derivative framework of DigiComp. We developed Entrecomp, LifeComp, and now actually we are working on a new framework, which is called probably GreenComp, which is to deal with environmental sustainability competences, which we hope to release by the end of this year. But in addition to individuals, we also developed the digital competence framework for our educators, for our teachers and trainers, and also a digital competence framework for educational organizations, the DigComp.org framework. And in addition, a framework for higher education on open education as well. And just to mention that the two frameworks, DigComp.edu and DigComp.org, they have been put into practice through self-reflection tools. And for that, we have Selfie, the free online self-reflection tool for schools, digital capacity, which was launched in 2018, which now has already more than 1.7 million users from more than 80 countries from all over the world. And we are going to launch this year in October, in a month actually, the Selfie for Teachers self-reflection tool to help teachers deal with their digital competences. So basically, all these frameworks, they are aimed to help us develop capacities for the twin transition, as we call it at the European level, for the digital and the green transition, which are the top priorities at the European level current day.
Thank you, Yves. Now, Rina, you lead the work on the DigiComp update. And so can you tell us a bit more in a few words what it is about?
Thank you. Exactly like was already mentioned, the digital competence framework, the list of competencies was last updated in 2016. So now we have a lot of new developments that took place. So this is exactly what we are looking for with the update, to define what kind of skills or knowledge citizens should have, for example, when they deal with virtual assistants, when there is actually AI-driven systems, the personal data is collected from users in a new different way. And in Europe, we have the GDPR. So of course, there are ramifications for that. So we want to highlight in these examples, very practically, citizens interacting with AI systems, what kind of skills, knowledge, and attitude they should have. Another example of these automated systems is activity streams in social media. They give you predictions, they give you recommendations. Again, there's data collected. So how could actually citizens be safe using these systems, and how they could be confident that there is proper data protection being taken place. They can also manipulate these systems so they can be proactive. We're not going to talk about in this what people should know about AI itself, but it is for AI, so using it in life. We also have many topics, new topics emerging because of the misinformation and disinformation. So all this will be highlighted, also this critical take on topics that you come across. We're also looking at the green and more healthy future, but personal well-being, also around using digital technologies. So there is also a big focus on sustainability, but also personal well-being, social well-being, but ergonomics also. And the big thing that was mentioned also, we have the new update of the definition of digital competence, and it now mentions media literacy. So we will be highlighting that link with the citizenship idea and with the people engaging through technologies in more civic matters. So those are the topics that we are now facing. Yeah, here, so we here have an example, really, of statements that we will be producing. Up on the top, you see one of our descriptors, and below you see formulations, knowledge examples, knowing that, being aware that. So those are things, knowledge examples. Skills, more or less, is being able to do something, being able to select the tool, being able to know how to do things. And attitude examples are being respectful, being inclined weighing the benefits of using some tools. So these kind of examples will be developed for all 21 competencies. What is important here is that these are not actually learning outcomes. So these are just to scope the competence and show the depth of it. And this could be used by training providers, for example, when they are creating content. Just to mention also that we will be working on these examples, but the whole list of DigComp 21 competencies will remain the same. So the conceptual model remains the same. And this is also an important message that we want to send for our stakeholders, for our users, that they don't need to change their training content much. This allows them to update it, rather just be more relevant for today's technologies. So thanks.
Thanks, Rina. Sorry for, I don't know why sometimes it stops.
Of course.
Thank you for explaining this. And let's now move to talk about the use of these frameworks. Since 2010, the JRC has worked to support policymakers in the EU and member states with the creation of competence frameworks for lifelong learning. Yves, can you tell a bit about the vision for that work and its history?
Yes, thank you, Stefano. As already said by Chiara in her introduction, that we are very proud and very pleased to see that actually the framework is quite widely used within Europe, but also outside of Europe. For that purpose, we highlight that the DigComp framework is a reference framework, which actually means that it's still quite generic and general, and it needs to be always adapted and somehow contextualized for specific purposes or within a local context. So it's a framework that allows flexibility and to be used for many different purposes. Now, what we've been seeing actually, on the one hand, it has been used for policy purposes, for policy formulation and policy support. We've now also seen in Europe in the recovery, the resilience and recovery facility plans of the member state, that several of them refer to the DigComp as the guiding framework for developing digital skills, upskilling and reskilling initiatives. For example, it's also been used, as said, in the DISI indicator. So it is used for policy formulation and for policy support. We also see that in many member states, it's been used to help revise curricula within school education. And we know a number of countries where really DigComp is used to really rethink how the curricula related to ICT and digital skills has to be taught. It's also used for teacher training, for training purposes, and it's of course also used within an employability context to help people who look for employment to upgrade their digital skills. And from that angle, lots of uses related to assessment and to certification. So basically, what the framework tries to do is provide a common understanding, an agreed set of definitions and vocabulary, an agreed vision of what is needed in terms of competences, and that is used, to mobilize stakeholders. And what is for me one of the most important and crucial things related to the take-up and the use of the framework is that stakeholders have now a common language to learn from each other, to try to avoid to reinvent the wheel, because obviously the challenges, the digital skills challenges, are very much the same in many countries, with all their specificities, of course. But the framework and the vocabulary helps to learn from each other, and in the end, become better and more effective in developing a digital skills initiative to tackle that the big digital skills challenge which we still have in our societies within Europe and also worldwide.
Okay, thank you, Yves. So, Rina, since the beginning of this year, the DigComp Community of Practice, hosted by All Digital, has had various activities related to the update. Now you're planning validation workshops and also public online validation where anyone can give feedback on your proposal through an online questionnaire. Can you tell us a bit more about the process and what you're seeking with it?
We are really looking at the workshops that we get the qualitative information, kind of a discussion feeling from users who work with similar challenges in other institutions. But also we have a lot of users of the DICCOM framework, both national and regional, but also international level. So listening from them, what worked well for them, and where do they see some gaps or lacks? How could DICCOM framework be developed better for their needs, and also to be useful in their local context of use. So that's the workshops, is to get this kind of a qualitative feedback. And then with the online survey questionnaire, we are more interested in people's opinion, which of these statements are relevant. We are now currently creating statements, and there are a lot of them. We have hundreds of them, but of course the final list will be reduced. So that will be also based on the opinion of people like the current users, practitioners, which of these statements are relevant. So we have that kind of a dual qualitative and a little bit more quantitative information. So let's say first, if you show the next slide, I would like to highlight that we also organize an open workshop. It's part of All Digital Summit, and it will take place on October 13. So if you just go for the Digital Skills Summit, you will be able to find that you can sign up. And there's also the community of practice through which we will make the information available. And that's also where a lot of this development work has taken place. But now we are taking a step back, going away from the developers and looking really with other users, having an external eye on our statements and hearing from you. So that will be this step. The online survey type of validation will start in October also, so keep an eye on that one.
So thank you, Rina. And Yves, do you want to just give a final comment?
Yes, of course. Thanks a lot. So just to highlight, this is so important that we have this community around DICCOM uptake and use. We have experts involved, we have practitioners involved, we have the important stakeholders involved, policymakers, and this is so crucial and so important also now for the update towards the new version of DICCOM 2.2 to have kind of this wide community so committed, and we are so pleased with that, so committed to help us come up with a new version of 2.2, because that is in the end crucial if we want to go, and that's our job in the end, to go to the policymakers and explain to them that this is a relevant new approach now that we have in the digital competence and DICCOM 2.2. We need to be able to ensure them this has been developed and done based on a wide consensus from the community. And that's why we're so pleased to have everybody involved. Please stay tuned, keep on contributing, and thanks a lot for all your dedication and efforts for this joint endeavor for developing the digital competences challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Yves. And now I will interrupt the sharing the slides. So now we open the floor to participants. If you have any questions that you want to ask to Rina or Yves for clarification, and we have a few moments for that.
Maybe while people are thinking of the questions, we can already a little bit talk about the workshop in practical terms that takes place on the 22nd. Yeah.
Yes, because you mentioned that you will provide in advance participants with material on your proposal for new examples. So what are the topics, themes that will be addressed by these examples that you want to discuss in the workshop?
Exactly. We would like to focus on 3 different areas. I already mentioned the AI. systems, citizens interacting with them. So we have examples for all 21 competencies related to AI. So that's one of the thematic areas. The second one will be on media and information literacy. And the third one will be on sort of a sustainable environmental development and well-being. So this is part of our safety area. So we will ask participants to sign up for 2 topics, and we will have breakout rooms. We will send the material in advance so that people can read the statements, and then we use the time in the breakout sessions for discussion and getting that kind of a qualitative feedback from you. So in a way, it's like a flipped classroom that we are doing in this.
And what kind of material will you make available, and more or less by when?
Yeah, so I have here an example of a printout that I already, that I'm still working on. And what you see here, I'm sorry that if it's not very clear, but the important part is that this here, the green, is our DICCOMP descriptor. In this case, it's the first descriptor about looking for information. Underneath, we have select sections, knowledge, skills, and attitude. And those are the statements that we are looking for your feedback, your ideas, and so on. So when you get the material, please focus on these parts where it says knowledge, skills, and attitude, and not on changing the descriptors themselves. We're not doing that work in this update now. Similarly, we have here's the, you can see it's red instead of green. So this red denotes the area. Each area has its own color. So here we are in communication and collaboration. And in some cases like this one, we have broken down the descriptors in smaller components so we can better focus on these topics. So you will receive this kind of lists, and we will also ask you to sign up for 2 of the workshop working groups, half-an-hour sessions. So we will have a better idea how to organize those sessions and get your feedback on it. So that will be, we will be sending these things out in 1 week's time. So next week, and we look forward to getting your comments. I would say this material is not confidential. You can share it with your colleagues, but please don't make it public as such. It's still work in progress, and this is a very important step. We are fine for you to share it, but please don't publish it too much.